You know the feeling. It starts like a slow burn, and then, bam, that familiar rage is boiling over. Your heart's pounding, your jaw is clenched, and you are this close to screaming. Why? Because your child is having a spectacular, 5-star meltdown over the color of their sippy cup, and you've officially hit your limit. You've asked, you've told them, you've begged. Now you're on your last nerve, and a yell is sitting in your throat, ready to erupt. But before you let out that yell you know you're going to regret, what if I told you there are a few simple words that can instantly de-escalate the drama? And not only that, but actually teach your child how to handle their own big, messy emotions. It's not a magic trick. It's a shift in your approach, one that's supported by what we know about a child's developing brain. In this video, I'm going to give you the exact phrases to use instead of shouting. These aren't just words, they're tools to build a more peaceful home and a much stronger, more connected relationship with your kid. Let's be real. No parent wakes up in the morning and thinks, I can't wait to yell at my kids today. We yell because we're tired, stressed, and feel like we've tried everything else. It feels like the only tool left when our kid just isn't listening. We think that maybe, just maybe, if we get louder, they'll finally hear us. But what really happens in their brain when we yell? Instead of registering a lesson, their brain registers a threat. This flips on a little alarm system called the amygdala. Once that alarm is blaring, it makes it incredibly difficult for the logical, reasoning part of their brain, the prefrontal cortex, to stay in charge. In that moment, your child is basically in survival mode, fight, flight, or freeze. Learning is off the table. This is why yelling often makes the behavior worse. A child in fight mode yells back. A child in flight mode runs off or shuts down. And a freeze kid might just stand there, looking like they're ignoring you, when really their brain is completely overwhelmed. Over time, some studies suggest a link between harsh verbal discipline and higher risks for anxiety and depression. Research has even shown associations between frequent yelling and physical differences in brain structures that are key for processing sound and emotion. And what about us? That brief moment of release we get from yelling is almost always followed by a tidal wave of guilt. We feel awful. We promise we won't do it again. But since the root of the problem wasn't solved, the cycle repeats. It's an exhausting, confidence-crushing loop for everyone. At the end of the day, yelling doesn't teach, it frightens. And a child who is scared isn't a child who can learn. So, if yelling is out, what's the alternative? It's a powerful parenting philosophy that can totally transform your approach. Connection before correction. The idea, which is central to positive discipline and supported by brain science, is that a child is much more receptive to correction when they first feel connected. When they feel seen, safe, and understood, their brain can move out of survival mode and into a receptive, learning state. So what does this look like in the heat of the moment? It's a simple 4-step protocol. Step 1. Get on their level. When your child is melting down, towering over them feels intimidating. Kneel, squat, or sit down. This simple physical act immediately lowers the threat level and communicates, I'm with you, not against you. Step 2. Get their attention gently. Before you start instructing, invite their attention softly. A gentle touch on their shoulder, saying their name quietly, or just waiting for eye contact can work. You're showing them you see them, not just the chaos. Step 3. Drop your volume. Our instinct is to talk over the noise. Do the exact opposite. Lower your voice almost to a whisper. It's a powerful pattern interrupt. They have to quiet down to hear you, and your calm voice is an invitation for their nervous system to calm down too. Step 4. The power of the pause. After you've connected, but before you correct, just pause. Take a deep breath together. This tiny 5-second moment signals that the immediate danger has passed, and it's safe to turn off the brain's alarm. Let's go back to your 5-year-old refusing to put on their shoes. The old way is yelling from the door, "Put your shoes on now! We are going to be late!" The connection first way. You walk over, you kneel down, you put a hand on their back. "Michael," you say quietly, and wait for him to look at you. You might say, "It looks like you're having a hard time with your shoes." Then, after a short pause, you say in a voice, "It's time to go. I'll help you with one shoe, and you can do the other." It feels slower, but it's so much faster than the 10-minute screaming match that was about to happen. Once you've made that connection, your words are everything. Vague commands like, "Calm down," or "Stop it," are useless. A dysregulated child has no idea how to do that. They need a clear roadmap. This brings us to our first set of magic words, focused on clarity and choice. First, use short, specific instructions. Instead of a, "Why haven't you cleaned this mess?" try a, "It's time to clean. Please put the blocks in the bin." This is a direction, not a suggestion, delivered with respect. Second, offer choices to reduce power struggles. Toddler and preschooler tantrums are often about a desperate grab for control. Offering a choice meets this need while keeping you in charge of the big picture. The trick is to only offer 2 choices you're happy with. Instead of demanding, "Put your coat on," you can ask, "Would you like to wear the blue coat or the red coat?" The non-negotiable is that a coat gets worn. The choice is just which one. Instead of, "You need to do your homework," try, "Do you want to do your homework before your snack or after your snack?" The non-negotiable is that homework gets done. The choice is when. This simple reframe transforms a battle into a collaboration. You're saying, "I see your need for autonomy, and we're also going to get this done." Another great phrase is, "When you do X, then we can do Y." For example, "When you put on your shoes, then we can go to the park." This teaches cause and effect in a positive way. Okay, you've connected. You've given a clear choice or instruction. And crickets. They just stare at you, or even worse, hit you with a flat-out no. This is the moment most of us lose it. But instead of yelling, try the wait and repeat method. When your child ignores you, your first move is to do nothing. Stay calm and silently count to 10. This little pause gives them a moment to process your request without pressure. You might be surprised how often they comply once they see you're not getting flustered. If they still haven't moved, it's time for calm repetition. You repeat the exact same instruction one more time, in the same neutral tone. No new threats, no hint of frustration. Just, "Please put the blocks in the bin." If they still refuse, it's time for a calm, immediate consequence. This isn't a punishment you invent in anger. It's a logical consequence that is related, respectful, and reasonable. The script is direct and unemotional. If you choose not to put the blocks away, you are choosing not to play with them for the rest of the morning. Notice the language, "if you choose." This puts the responsibility right in their hands. If they still don't comply, you follow through immediately and without lectures. You calmly gather the blocks and put them away. The action speaks for itself and teaches them that your words have meaning. A powerful phrase for holding a boundary in these moments is, "I love you," and the answer is still no. This beautifully separates their behavior from their worth, showing them that your love is unconditional, but the limit is non-negotiable. If you've ever found yourself stuck in that yelling and guilt cycle, and if any of this is hitting home, let me know in the comments. What's the one situation that gets you every time? Sharing our struggles is the first step to changing them. And if you're finding this helpful, hit that like button so I know to make more videos like this. So far, we've talked about what to do in the heat of the moment, but the most powerful parenting happens outside of the conflict. It's about proactively rewiring your child's brain for cooperation and your own brain for calm. We do this through labeled praise and modeling self-regulation. First, labeled praise. Our brains are wired to notice what's going wrong, so we often find ourselves constantly correcting. Labeled praise flips the script. It's about actively catching your child being good and naming the specific behavior. Good job is nice, but it's vague. Labeled praise is descriptive. Instead of good job cleaning, try I love how you put all the cars back in the basket without me even asking. Instead of you were good at the store, say thank you for sitting so patiently in the cart while I was paying. This does two amazing things. It gives them a clear picture of what you want to see, and it fills their connection tank. A helpful guideline to aim for is the magic ratio of 5 positive interactions for every 1 negative one. When kids get tons of positive attention for good behavior, they have less need to seek it in negative ways. Now for the hardest part, modeling self-regulation. Our kids learn how to handle big feelings by watching us. If we want them to stop melting down, we have to model how to stop our own meltdowns. When you feel that rage building, your magic words are for yourself. I'm feeling too angry to talk right now. I need to take a minute to calm my body down. Then step away if it's safe. Go splash water on your face. Take 10 deep breaths. You are showing them in real time what it looks like to regulate your emotions. After you've calmed down, you repair. You go back and say, I'm sorry I raised my voice. I was feeling really frustrated, but those are my feelings to manage. I still love you. This doesn't undermine your authority. It builds incredible trust and teaches them that mistakes can be fixed. Section 6. From punishment to problem solving, the art of restorative action. Sometimes a child hits a sibling or breaks something important. The instinct is to punish, but the risk with punishment is that it can create resentment instead of remorse. A more effective approach is restorative action. The goal isn't to make them suffer, it's to have them make amends. This shifts the focus from "you are bad" to "your choice had a negative impact and now we need to fix it." The magic words here are about collaborative problem solving. Let's say your son angrily wrecks his sister's Lego tower. The punishment mindset: that's it, time out for 20 minutes. The restorative mindset sounds like this, after everyone is calm. Your sister is so sad her tower is broken. What can we do to help her feel better? You're guiding them to think about the other person and take an active role in the repair. If they make a mess, you spilled the juice. Let's get a cloth and clean it up together. If they tell a lie, thank you for telling me the truth now. Now we can figure out how to solve this together. This approach teaches empathy and responsibility, skills far more valuable than simply learning to fear punishment. It shows that mistakes are opportunities to learn and repair. Parenting is the hardest job on the planet, and perfect parents don't exist. This journey isn't about never feeling angry. It's about having better tools for when you do. It's about choosing connection over control and guidance over guilt. Let's remember those key phrases. Instead of yelling, connect first by getting on their level with a calm voice. Use clear instructions and offer choices. Would you like to do A or B? When they defy you, wait and repeat, then calmly state the consequence. If you choose not to, you choose. Hold firm, loving boundaries with, "I love you," and the answer is no. Model your own calm down strategy by saying, "I need a minute to calm down," and turn mistakes into lessons with, "What can we do to fix this?" By replacing shouts with these phrases, you're not just stopping a tantrum, you are teaching your child how to manage emotions, respect boundaries, and repair relationships. You're giving them a blueprint for emotional intelligence that will last a lifetime. You can do this. It's not about being perfect, it's about being present.